I live in a sleek, minimalist apartment in the city, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows that are supposed to make you feel like you're on top of the world. I live with my fiancé David by day. I'm a marketing coordinator for a mid-level tech firm, writing copy about synergy and optimization. But that's not who I am. He took my smile, my dreams, and my hope. So I had to build a world without him. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Our life looked perfect. If you'd scrolled through David's social media, I wasn't really on it. A waste of creative energy, he'd said, and I'd agreed you would have seen us. You'd see David, 31, impossibly handsome in a tailored suit, raising a glass at a charity gala. You'd see me, Anna, 29, smiling beside him, my hand in his, my dress expensive and elegant. You'd see our apartment, all steel, glass, and neutral tones, featured in a Rising Stars of Finance local magazine profile on him. He was a management consultant, a job that was as demanding as it was vague, and it afforded us this life. The article called me his creative and supportive partner. It was half right. I was supportive. The creative part, however, was locked away in the back of our cavernous walk-in closet behind my meticulously organized, David-approved wardrobe, beige, black, navy, and gray. There was a small, locked storage space. It was meant for luggage. Inside, beneath a dust cover, was my old life. Canvases, tubes of oil paint, charcoal sticks, and turpentine. The smell of them was the only thing that felt like me. I was a painter. Or I had been. It's just not a practical long-term plan, babe, David had said 3 years ago, his voice gentle, reasonable. I just had my first small gallery showing. I'd sold 2 pieces. I was ecstatic. This consulting track is about to explode for me. We need stability. You're so good with words. That marketing gig is perfect. It's secure. You can paint on weekends, but weekends became client dinners. They became team-building retreats. They became, Anna, I'm exhausted. Can we just watch the game? The lid on the paint tubes crusted shut. The canvases collected dust. I became a marketing coordinator. My best friend Chloe saw it. Chloe was everything our apartment was not all bright colors. Chaotic energy and the constant smell of coffee grounds and turpentine. She was a barista working her way through art school, and she had been my painting partner since college. I don't get it, Anna, she said one Tuesday, huddled in the corner of her coffee shop. She pushed a lukewarm latte toward me. He just flattened you. He didn't flatten me, Chloe, I argued, my voice quieter than I intended. He's practical. We're building a future. It's what adults do. That marketing job pays well. It pays for his future, she muttered, wiping down the espresso machine with a fierce snap of her wrist. When was the last time you painted? I mean, really painted? Not just sketched a flower on a napkin. I flinched. I couldn't remember. I'd tried once or twice. David had come into the spare room I'd claimed as a studio. He hadn't yelled. He never yelled. He just looked, his head tilted. It's just ... A lot of mess, isn't it? For a hobby. And the smell, Anna, it's giving me a headache. Can't you just do digital art on that tablet I bought you? The tablet was still in its box. The spare room was now his home gym. The mess was back in the closet. The cage was comfortable, I'll give it that. The bars were made of designer clothes, expensive dinners, and the promise of a secure future. David wasn't a monster. He was just a curator. He was curating me. He curated my wardrobe. Blue is really your color, babe. That yellow, it's a bit loud. He'd curated my friendships. Chloe's sweet, but isn't she a little aimless? He curated my dreams, that author thing you talked about. So solitary. We're a team. The author thing was a manuscript I'd been working on, a novel about a woman who loses her color and has to find it again. It was 30,000 words, and when my laptop crashed, David had fixed it. The file was gone. "Sorry, babe," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "I told you to back it up to my drive." "Don't worry, we'll get you a new one." He bought me the tablet instead, so I smiled for his photos. I organized his dry cleaning. I wrote marketing copy about leveraging assets and streamlining workflows. I was the perfect supportive partner. I was stable. I was secure. And I was completely, utterly hollow. The person in the mirror was a stranger. Her eyes were tired. Her smile was a well-practiced gesture, a quick upward pull of the mouth that never reached her eyes. The real Anna, the one who loved the smell of turpentine and the feeling of charcoal under her nails, was in the closet. And David, I was beginning to realize, was the one who had locked the door. The betrayal wasn't a single gunshot. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, inflicted daily, so small you'd barely notice them until you were bleeding out. It was the slow, methodical erosion of me. My smile was the first thing to go. It used to be a big, uncontainable thing. Chloe called it my sunburst laugh. Around David, it became a polite quirk of the lips. He'd often compliment it. "There's that soft smile I love," he'd murmur at a dinner party, his hand resting on the small of my back, his fingers pressing just a little too hard. Anna's not one for loud, obnoxious laughter. She's got class. I'd feel a flush of something, not pleasure, but a strange, cold validation. I was being classy. I was being what he wanted. Then came the dreams. My painting was the big one, but there were smaller ones too. I'd always wanted to go to Italy. I'd saved for it, a separate account I'd had since college, labeled Florence Fund. When we decided to merge our finances, his idea, "It's just easier for tracking our assets." Babe, that account was the first thing he optimized. Tuscany? "It's so dot." "Cliché," he'd said, scrolling through my Pinterest board. "And it's a terrible return on investment. All that old stone. We can go to Dubai. Now that's a city. Clean, new, efficient." We went to Dubai. I hated it. It felt like a sterile blueprint, a city with no soul. When I said as much, David laughed. "That's the point, Anna. It's pure function. It's perfect." He took a photo of me staring blankly at the Burj Khalifa and tagged it, "My girl, speechless at the marvels of man." I wasn't speechless. I was just empty. My hope was the last to die, and it died a slow, agonizing death. It flickered every time I saw a canvas in a shop window. It sparked when Chloe would send me a link to an art competition. "You should enter," she'd text. "No time," I'd text back, David's calendar open on my other screen. "Have to prep for his presentation." The final cut, the one that severed the last thread of hope, happened at his firm's annual awards dinner. I'd been working on a small piece, in secret, just charcoal on paper, sketched in the bathroom with the fan on to hide the sound. The materials smuggled in my purse by Chloe. It was a portrait of her, her sunburst laugh in full effect. It was good. I knew it was good. David's boss, a stiff man named Mr. Henderson, was making small talk with me. "David tells me you're the creative one, Anna. A writer, is it?" "I paint, actually," I said, and for a second my voice was my own. "I'm a painter." David, who had been across the room, was suddenly at my elbow, his smile slick. "Oh, Anna, you're too modest." He laughed, a short, sharp sound that was more of a bark. "She's a fantastic hobbyist. She does these adorable little watercolors of our cat. Don't you, babe?" "I didn't have a cat," Mr. Henderson chuckled politely. David's hand was on my back again, steering me away. He's an important man, Anna, he hissed, his smile still fixed in place for the crowd. Don't bore him with your little projects. It makes you sound unserious. It makes me look unserious, I stared at him. I don't have a cat, David. It's an anecdote, Anna, a relatable detail. Painter sounds so pretentious. Adorable watercolors sounds charming. Learn the difference. I went to the restroom. I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back was pale, her eyes wide with a silent, screaming horror. The polite smile was gone. There was nothing in its place. I had been fully and completely erased. I was a charming anecdote, a supportive partner, an empty, elegant dress. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay beside him, listening to his steady, rhythmic breathing. He was so calm, so efficient. He had streamlined me. He had optimized me. I was a depreciating asset, and he was the portfolio manager. The Florence Fund money, it had gone into a high-risk tech stock he was sure about. It had tanked 6 months ago. He'd forgotten to tell me. We took a small hit, babe, he'd said when I'd finally asked where the line item on our joint statement had gone. It's fine. We'll make it back. You don't need to worry your pretty head about the numbers. That's my job. He had taken my money, my art, my voice, and my smile. He hadn't just taken my hope. He had repackaged it, leveraged it, and lost it, all while telling me it was for my own good. The betrayal wasn't that he'd had an affair. It was so much worse. He had committed soul theft. The discovery happened, as it so often does, by accident. It was a Tuesday morning, and David was running late. This was unusual. David ran on a schedule so precise it was suffocating. He'd been in the shower, and his work bag, a sleek leather messenger bag that cost more than my first car, was sitting on the bed. He yelled for me to grab his blue tie, the power one dot as I rummaged through his obsessively organized tie rack. His bag buzzed. A low, insistent vibration. I glanced over. His work phone was on the bedside table, dark and silent. The buzzing was coming from the bag dot. My heart didn't pound. It just stopped. It was a cold, hard stone in my chest. I walked over to the bag. The buzzing had stopped. I unclipped the heavy brass buckle. Inside, nestled between his laptop and a folder of spreadsheets, was a second phone. A simple black burner phone. David called from the bathroom. Anna, the tie. I'm going to be late. Coming. I called back, my voice remarkably steady. I snatched the tie, but my eyes were locked on the phone. My fingers moved of their own accord. I grabbed it, slipped it into the pocket of my robe, and grabbed the tie. I walked into the steam-filled bathroom and handed it to him. Took you long enough, he grumbled, not looking at me, already expertly tying the knot. He kissed the air near my cheek, grabbed his work phone and his bag, and was out the door. Dinner with Henderson tonight, don't wait up. The door clicked shut. The apartment was silent. I pulled the phone from my pocket. It was cheap plastic, a stark contrast to the high-end tech he normally favored. It felt illicit. My hands were shaking. I pressed the power button. It wasn't even locked. There was only one message thread, with a contact simply saved as J. And one app, a hidden banking app I didn't recognize. I opened the messages first. My breath caught. Deal closed. Fund transfer complete. She has no idea. Of course she doesn't. She's too busy picking out charming pink colors. You're a genius, David. A cold-blooded genius. It's just optimization. J, taking a non-performing asset and liquidating it for a better return. My blood ran cold. A non-performing asset. I scrolled up. And up. Months, no, years of messages. J was James, his old partner from business school, the one he'd supposedly had a falling out with, They hadn't fallen out. They were partners. I read about the Florence Fund. It's just sitting there. Dead money. I'm moving it. I read about my inheritance, a modest sum my grandmother had left me, which I thought we'd invested in a safe index fund. Rolled the inheritance into the Cayman account. It's cleaner that way, I read about me. Is she getting suspicious? Jay asked, a message from 6 months ago. Anna? No, she's happy as long as I tell her she's pretty and buy her a new beige sweater. It's almost too easy. She's my charming, clueless little ATM. My vision tunneled. I sat on the edge of our perfect neutral tone bed. An ATM, a non-performing asset, a beige sweater. Then I clicked on the banking app. It required a passcode. I tried his birthday, nothing. Our anniversary, nothing. His mother's birthday, nothing. I thought for a moment, my mind numb. What did David truly value? What was the one thing he worshipped? I typed in a number, the balance of his first big bonus, the one he'd framed the pay stub for. The app opened. I saw it. Account after account, offshore, hidden, numbers that made no sense. He wasn't just a successful consultant. He was a thief, and I wasn't his partner. I was his first victim, but the most chilling discovery wasn't the money. It was the other folders on the phone. There was a gallery. It wasn't of other women. It was of me, but it was all the 4 pictures. Me, splattered with paint, laughing in Chloe's messy studio. Me, on a hiking trip, hair a mess, grinning from the top of a mountain. Me, holding the first check I'd ever gotten for a painting. They were photos he must have copied from my old laptop before he fixed it, and then a separate folder. The after pictures. Me at his galas, smiling that quiet, empty smile. Me in the beige dresses. Me staring blankly at the Dubai skyline, and a text to Jay attached to a before photo of me, my face bright with paint. This was the raw material, unfocused, messy, high maintenance. Then a text attached to the after gala photo. And this is the final product, streamlined, elegant, profitable. He hadn't just been controlling me. He hadn't just been stealing from me. He had been documenting it. It was a project. I was his project. Project Anna, taming the shrew, or a project, optimizing a liability. He had taken my smile, my dreams, and my hope, not as a byproduct of his control, but as the goal. The numbness vanished. It was replaced by something white-hot and sharp. It wasn't just anger. It was clarity. The kind of clarity that burns. He had built a cage and documented his success in taming the creature inside. He'd made one mistake. He'd left the cage door open, and he'd forgotten that the creature he'd been taming was, in fact, the one who held the key. I wasn't a non-performing asset. I was a sleeping dragon. And I was finally awake. Chapter 4, The Investigation. A life built on lies, the white-hot clarity didn't fade. It settled into a cold, hard resolve. For the next 3 weeks, I became the finest actress David had ever seen. I was the perfect, supportive, streamlined Anna. I made his morning coffee. I laid out his power ties. I listened with a gentle, non-committal smile as he talked about leveraging and Q4 projections. I was beige. I was charming. I was an ATM, and every day from 9:05 a.m., 5 minutes after he left to 4:55 p.m., 5 minutes before I left my office, I waged a silent war. The second phone was my Rosetta Stone. I didn't take it. That would be too obvious. Instead, I did something David himself would appreciate. I cloned it. I spent an entire weekend. While he was on a golf retreat, a text to Jay confirmed it was a meeting in the Caymans, using data transfer software. I now had a live feed of his secret life on my old broken laptop. The one I'd retrieved from the back of his closet and painstakingly repaired myself. I was no longer just Anna, the marketing coordinator. I was Anna, the forensic accountant. The first thing I did was call Chloe. I met her at the coffee shop, but this time I didn't sit in the corner. I took her to the back room where they kept the supplies. "Chloe," I said, my voice low and flat, "I need your help, and you cannot ask me why." "Not yet." She searched my face. The old, weary Anna was gone. "Okay," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "What do you need?" "I need a P.O. box in your name. I need you to hold something for me. And I need you to be my alibi for a lot of things." "Done," she said, not a moment's hesitation. "What else?" "I need you to help me find a shark. The kind of liar who guts fish like David for breakfast." She nodded. "My art law professor? She's retired, but she hates men who curate women. She knows someone." While Chloe tapped into her network, I dug. The burner phone was just the start. I used the information from it to access his email, his real email, not the one I was allowed to see. The password? The date he'd lost his first dollar in the stock market. He was pathologically obsessed with his own mythology of success and failure. The emails were worse than the texts. They weren't just with Jay. They were with lawyers. His own lawyers. They had drafted documents, partnership agreements that funneled profits from consulting gigs into offshore shells. And then I found the file named AP. Anna's portfolio. He hadn't just lost my inheritance. He'd used it as collateral for a high-risk commercial real estate loan. He'd forged my signature. The AP file contained meticulous records of my original assets, his investments, and the slow, systematic siphoning of all of it into his own name. He had been rendering me financially destitute. If I'd left him, I would have had nothing. Not just nothing, less than nothing. The loans were in my name, too. I printed everything. Every email. Every bank statement. Every forged signature. I made 3 copies. One went into a waterproof, fireproof bag, which I gave to Chloe to put in a storage unit, also in her name. The second went to the P.O. box. The third I kept. Then I investigated his work. I called his firm's HR department, pretending to be a background check specialist for high-level security clearance. I spoofed my number. I used the jargon I'd absorbed from him over the years, just verifying Mr. David Heston's employment dates for a sensitive government contract. Need to confirm his title. Management consultant, correct? A pause. "Mr. Heston?" The polite HR woman said. "He's not a management consultant. He's a senior analyst in the mailroom logistics department." I almost dropped the phone. Mailroom logistics. He's been with us ... Let's see. 8 years, she continued. Very reliable. Manages all our inter-office courier schedules. David, my David, the man who spoke of Q4 projections and synergizing assets. The man who wore $3,000 suits. He managed ... The mail dotted all clicked. The client dinners were lies. The consulting was a front. The real money, it was from Jay. David wasn't a partner. He was a bagman. He was using his low-level position at a prestigious firm to move ... something. I didn't know what, and I didn't care. What I cared about was that the entire foundation of our life, his career, his intellect, his superiority, was a complete and utter fraud. He didn't make $500,000 a year. He probably made $50,000. The suits, the apartment, the dinners ... They were all paid for with my money. The inheritance he'd lost was funding his fantasy life. He wasn't just a thief. He was a parasite. My investigation was complete. I had the how. I had the what. I had the why.